What's up out there, Float fam? I'm Colin, aka Filthy McNasty, and I've got a little something that a lot of you might be interested in. So I had an extra GT footpad lying around, like some of us may still, and I decided I wanted to put that sensor on my Kush wide. So I did it, and this is most of how. Alright, so I've got my replacement foot pad here. I've pulled the grip tape off, and I'm going to attempt to remove the sensor and transplant it onto this Kush wide. So we'll see how that goes. I have no confidence whatsoever this is going to work how I hope. There's not really any videos that I've seen of people actually taking the sensor off of one of these. There might be out there, I don't know. I looked, but I didn't see any. So we'll see what happens. So we're going to speed up a lot of this. It's just a long, arduous process. Just up ahead here, I do slow down, and I want to point out what exactly I slowed down to show. So here I'm peeling back that plastic adhesive and holding down the plug with a little screwdriver just to make sure that I don't damage the ribbon cable. Alright, plug removed. Now I feel good about trying to get the sensor off. Okay, so and just use a little putty knife, see how that works. I think that a plastic putty knife is definitely the way to go here. You could use a metal one, but definitely you're going to risk damaging your pad or sensor more so than with a plastic one. Seems to be working pretty well. I also got some goof off. See if maybe it'll release that adhesive a little more easily. I started out just by putting some of the solvent onto the tip of the little spatula, but ended up starting to just squirt bits underneath the sensor, and it worked really, really well. Well, seems like it's working okay. Seems to be working pretty well. I mean, time will tell. I mean, certainly won't know until I plug the thing in and see if it still works. So I took the tack of just going all the way around the edge, making sure that that was all released before I started working my way into the center. Yeah, I mean, I really don't know if this goof off stuff is going to degrade the plastic, but it was working really, really well on the adhesive so far. And it didn't seem to degrade the plastic at all. I'm just kind of, I've worked my way around the outside edge, Now I'm just kind of going a little bit at a time from the bottom to the top with the knife. I'm hoping that this doesn't damage the sensor in any way. Seems like the least traumatic way I can think of doing this. And my goal in using the putty knife was just to make sure that I didn't crease the sensor anywhere. And it seemed to work well. I've got a functional pad in the end. I mean, for all I know, this is a complete waste of time and I'm totally wrecking this sensor. But spoiler alert, I didn't. And here we bust out the heat gun for just a second to release that hard glue and make sure we don't destroy the rear end cable. And there we have it. Part 1. So now I have to clean off all the adhesive off the bottom of the sensor. The goof off did release it, but it didn't like completely dissolve it or anything. I also found that scrubbing with a towel or paper towel or sponge was not as effective as just like pouring a bunch of the stuff onto the adhesive and then scraping it with the putty knife. This is the way right here. Forget scrubbing it off with a towel or a sponge or something. This is what you want to do. And at least until you get the majority of it off, that is the best way to do it. After you get all the clumps, then you can hit it again with a paper towel or a cloth with some more of this solvent. It's coming along, but this is not for the faint of the heart. I say that because I spent a solid half hour cleaning the adhesive off the bottom of this thing. It's very important to get all of the stuff off the bottom. You want it to sit on the pad as flat as you possibly can. There is one clean GT footpad sensor. See how it goes onto the old Kush here in a little bit. Alright, so we've got the pad cleaned up, we've got the sensor off, we've got it cleaned up. Now I need to make some modifications to the Kush wide. So first off, I'm going to line it up with the screw holes at the bottom there. Just going to use a screwdriver, put it through both of them, make sure they're lined up. And then I'm going to make a bit of a mark straight down onto the Kush wide where the hole for the sensor is on the stock pad. And I'm going to use my razor knife to mark a line on the bottom of the pad where the sensor indicator bar light is. I'll cut that out. See if we got a good mark there. Looks like it's just above that little fill point for the injection mold, just like on the stock pad. So here I am just cutting a little slot to put the connector for the sensor pad through. This material is extremely tough. I mean, I had a hard time, and it took me a couple tries to actually get a decent little slot that I could get the plug through without trying to force it. And that ribbon cable is delicate, so you want to make sure that you can get through without having to like push or use undue force. Okay. So I think that will be able to go through now. Needless to say, this was also pretty difficult. And I probably could have cut it just a little bit wider and have it fit better. It doesn't line up exactly now that it's installed, but it does work. I can see the bar. So before I try and install the footpad, I'm going to hit this thing with some isopropyl. So after I cleaned the pad off, I put the sensor on top of it and got a little dismayed. I didn't think that it was actually going to lay flat. I walked away for a little while. I came back and did some more adjustment. I never started recording again. So basically what I did is I cleaned these off, I laid down some cardboard, and then I used some spray adhesive that I had around. It was a Loctite brand,
Same with
some kind of professional business.
Footpad.
But it was meant for adhering plastic, and it seems to have worked well. Okay, so I got frustrated because I didn't think that this pad, the sensor was going to lay down flat in this pad, and I stopped taking video, and then I went and fiddled with it for a little while off camera, walked away from it for a bit, came back, and after doing some cutting to the slots that kind of separate the different sections and giving it a little extra room to move around, I think that it's laid flat. It's plugged up, it senses on both sides, seems to release. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, so I successfully tested it, and it works. It's not binding up or anything. I just want to point out a couple of the places where I did have to make additional cuts into the plastic. So as you can see, I had to pull out a good sized chunk right there. I was having an issue with a bubble here, but I got that out, and then had to shave a bit off of the inside of this already present sort of slot. And up here I had to cut a fair amount out of this just to get them to sit flat. There is no cut here originally, but because of the concave I had to cut out a fair amount so they wouldn't bind up and create a bubble. You can see I cut all the way down to almost at the plug, and I did the same on this side as I did on the other. That's the only additional modification that I had to make to the sensor itself. Grip tape is applied. It's a little small and off center, but I'm going to order another piece for the Kush wide at some point. See if this, as long as this guy works. Looks like somebody's got a Kush wide with a transplanted stock sensor up front. How about them apples? Just need to get a new piece of grip tape cut for the Kush wide that covers the whole thing. I don't know, actually it doesn't bother me too much having it be a little uncovered. But Craft and Ride air pad in the back, Kush wide with a stock GT sensor, just slightly modified up front. Alright, so that's about that. I did get to ride today. It was nice and sunny, so I did my normal work commute, and This thing performed admirably. Felt great underfoot. The extra wide real estate there really allowed me to flip the board onto its edges a lot more easily. So I was carving even harder than ever. And I think it's a great idea to do it if you've got the resources and a little bit of DIY skill. I want to also throw out the stuff that I used. Just a plastic putty knife. It was like $1 at Home Depot or Lowe's. This stuff, the goof off, is what I use to release the adhesive from the underside of the sensor. And this is the adhesive that I ended up using to attach the sensor to the pad. It's just what I had around. Might not be ideal, but it seems to be working well up until this point. So thanks for watching. I hope this was valuable information or helpful for anybody else who might be interested in pulling a stock sensor and putting on an aftermarket pad. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.